All right. Da 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 da. That's my snazzy intro music. Da 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 da. Okay, so hey everybody, I'm Kat Udero, psychic wrangler, empath, entrepreneur in the works, in the makings. I want to welcome you to Third Eye Salon, where in each and every show we take a fresh look between the veils of reality. And today we are taking a fresh look between the veils of love, sex, and relationships, but from a spiritual vantage point. So before we see who's in the salon today, we want to let you know that our lovely co-host Jillian Leonard, who's with us almost every week, well, she's not gonna be, unless, yeah, she's not gonna be for the foreseeable future because she's just got a new job. Canada has been freed from lockdown, hallelujah. So Jillian is out there in her new career, having the time of her life, and so she will not be on the show, except for on the occasions where she can pop back in. But we wanted to acknowledge her, say thank her. We love her, and without her, you know what? We never would have had Sean Leonard from Canada on our show. So we're so grateful to Jillian, and we're sending her all of our love. And with that, hey, look who is in the salon. Why, it's Linda Coulter Burge. How are you doing, Linda?
I am doing wonderful today. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. This is going to be a great conversation, as always, on Third Eye Salon. And I am your psychic business coach and conscious coach. And I want to thank you for joining the live stream chat. As always, my policy is play nice or get out. So if you are in the mind of always being right, this isn't the place for you. This is a place for mind expansion. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, and hit the button so you know when we do show up and get that notification. And check out the links below in the description. There's a couple different links for Kristopher that you want to check out. Thanks for everyone who has donated to us and given us a coffee. It's almost a weekly basis. I think it is weekly. And we just love that you show the appreciation through a financial as well. It's not required by any means, but we do appreciate it because it helps us pay for some of the people that support us. And we love if you would join our Facebook group. If you aren't there, you'll get to have ongoing discussions with a lot of our guests and free offers sometimes, or discounted offers, depending on what it is. And you won't get it anywhere else but on our site. Welcome, Kristopher Lovestone. I can't wait to hear more about you from a woman's point of view. So I'm sure I will let most of this discussion be with Kat and you, but I'm going to pop in every once in a while on a woman's side.
Please do.
And oh, by the way, a therapist once told me I was the masculine energy in the relationship. So there's that too. So I have a lot to learn as well.
Well, Kat and Linda, thank you for having me on the show. And to everybody that tunes in today, thank you for showing up, because these things that we're going to talk about today are not common conversations. And oftentimes we don't see people with penises talking about these issues publicly. You know, a lot of women are doing their self-empowerment work, goddess circles, sisterhood circles, and stuff like that. But a lot of guys aren't. There's kind of few resources or role models or reference points of men in the world who are willing to discuss these things and then also well-versed in them. So anyway, thank you for having me on the show. If anybody has any questions, comments, concerns, please type them in the chat in YouTube and or join the salon. I just joined too, and we can continue the discussions there.
Awesome. Kristopher, you're just so easy and natural. And so I'm slowly trying to convince Kristopher to have his own podcast. So by the end of this, if you or midway through, if you think Kristopher should have his own podcast, just leave his comments, because I really want to encourage him. He's just a natural educator. So let me hop into Kristopher's bio, and then we'll get into our questions. So we want you to understand Kristopher a little bit more. He is the Einstein of relationships. Kristopher Lovestone is an ingenious certified sex educator who is breaking new ground in sex education for men and couples. After surviving 6 divorces during his childhood, he went on to rewrite the rules of the relationship game so that people can actually win. His ingenious and practical approach transforms people's ability to get what they want, what they really want in their long-term relationships. through state-of-the-art communication tools, cutting-edge sex and intimacy education, and innovative. Sorry, there's a European way of saying that. Innovative, rational, relational strategies. He empowers people to exit relationship exhaustion and cultivate the intimacy of their dreams with their partners. Wow, that hits a big one. Cultivate the intimacy of your dreams. His techniques have yielded him a wildly successful 15-year marriage that gets hotter each and every year. You can find his teachings in his book, Conscious Cock, the Empowered Sexuality Manual for Men, which women can buy as well, because you know what? It's a big eye opener for both sexes. And I was listening to a couple of podcasts with Kristopher before having our pre-show chat. And yeah, I would say this book is for like heterosexual couples, regardless of who you are in that relationship. It's going to be eye-opening because both men and women were like, whoa, you're blowing my mind. So this is really good stuff. So give us a thumbs up if you're excited to hear about Chris's insights on how to have a strong, healthy, and fulfilling, loving relationship. And we're going to look at what Kristopher does from the vantage point of being spiritually awake and alive, connected. But before we get into the conversation, I want Kristopher to tell us where he grew up and how he became interested in the role of becoming such a sex educator for men. I'm having trouble talking for some reason, so I'll stop talking. Kristopher, you take the mic and I'll get some water.
Kat, maybe it's because we're talking about conscious cock. Maybe,
I'm
might get you stuttering here.
Oh my!
Oh my! We're going to talk about cock directly.
Well, I will tell you, when it comes to sex stuff, like I don't talk about that stuff normally. I'm gay as a day is long, but talking about like sex, I'm like, so
right.
Take it away.
These are uncommon conversations. We are. North American culture is not an open culture talking about intimacy and sexuality. It's, we're predict what the other person's feeling, what they're thinking. We try to be psychic, and a lot of times we fail. And what we need to do is ask what their experience is, what's going on inside of them, what their boundaries and dreams are. We actually have to ask these things and elicit them, because we're not in a culture where these things are openly shared as our base of interactions. Anyway, you asked about me. So yeah, I've got a weird, unique story. I grew up Hindu Vedantin in the Ramakrishna Vedanta Center. And Ramakrishna brought this philosophy like Buddhism from India to the Americas in the 1920s, 100 years ago, that all relationships all religions are valid, that all religions are just different pathways to the same ultimate divine. And that was news. That was news in the United States at that time. It was a lot of Roman Catholicism, and other forms of Christianity. But this concept that no, we can integrate, accept, we can support. We don't have to say, oh no, my way is the only way. My way is the valid way. So I grew up in this with the swamis, meditating, surrounded by holiness as common and average. Like, it's okay to be holy. It's not, it doesn't have to be a rare thing or a stigma, or you only get touched by holiness once in your life or something like that. No. And my grandmother meditating every single day during my childhood, just growing up in this deep peace and acceptance of the divine in all of us. So I just grew up with this as my operating system, which is really rare for a boy who grew up in St. Louis, Missouri.
Oh, okay. Wow.
So where did you want me to go with that question? How did I get into sex education?
So I'm wondering what the process was, because what inspired you? Because one of the things that you said in our pre-show chat, which I loved, was like, God was always with you. Yeah. So, in my mind, I'm like, oh, well, God was always with you, so you really didn't have any sexual hangups because you were always connected.
Oh, that's not true. I had sexual hangups for sure.
So there are these assumptions. So what was your journey?
Okay, so even though I was growing up Hindu, I was still in white North American culture.
Right.
With television and all the relationship programming and cultural programming of Hollywood and my parents' generation and friends, family, business all around me. Like, I was still awash in this culture, although I had this baseline in spirituality from the East. So I've always experienced God since childhood as like a ringing in between my ears, which I learned how to work with when I learned Reiki 20 years ago. It's
Oh.
the same thing, like just this feeling this vibration in my body. And that comes to play in sexual energy for me now also. But yeah, I grew up with sexual hangups. Absolutely. Everybody around me was repressed. Of course, I was repressed too. How could I not be? But then we also are in a hyper-sexualized culture. Like, look at the bikini ads on television, look at the billboards on the highway, you know. So while we see all these images of women with artificially enhanced bodies all around us and photoshopped bodies, if you look at any cover on Cosmopolitan 17, anything like these,
Everywhere.
they're all photoshopped. If you see
Yep.
the person and the cover image, like, oh my God, you can't believe it's the same person, but the after photography processing is ridiculous. It's an entire profession to know how to do this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so we have these images, hypersexualized and idealized images of women, for example, and men, but to a lesser extent, that we are just living and breathing every single day. Where is truth in that? Anyway, so at the same time as that, we're sexually repressed. We can't talk about our sexual desires, our sexual fantasies. Everybody thinks their sexual fantasies are weird. Everybody thinks they're naughty. Everybody thinks they're bad, but they're not. They're just human. We all have desires. We all have things that we want to experience before we die. That's just part of being alive and incarnated. We're social creatures. You know, we grow up, well, hopefully having a mother who can breastfeed us, right? And having that intimate physical connection, life force and food and touch and intimacy imprinted on us at a young age. Like, we are social creatures. We need touch. So we're damned if we do and we're damned if we don't. We're brought up hypersexualized but repressed, and we're not given the tools to actually solve that contradiction, to actually exit that maddening paralysis to something that's actually authentic and healthy, not just for us, but for the people that we touch. You can get me going here. So,
well, this is the thing. This is why you need to have a podcast. But anyway, so I wanted to know, like, then what was the pivotal moment for you where you were like, oh, wait, this is a bunch of bullshit. I need to figure this out for myself. Oh gosh, I've got it figured out. I'm a sex educator. Like, what was that moment of being like, I've got to make this my own. I can't, what was the breakthrough moment or the breakdown moment?
There was both an ongoing, decades-long personal investigation process and also a moment. So I grew up, yeah, you said it in my bio, living through surviving 6 divorces in my childhood. So I grew up in dysfunction, abuse, harassment, trauma, just relationship failure, people not getting what they want, ships passing in the night, even though they were trying their best. And the pattern that you see everywhere of people like starting a relationship and then 3 years later it fails. And then they go on to another relationship because the grass is greener, right? And then the whole cycle just repeats and repeats and repeats. So I grew up in that as normal.
Okay.
And I just had this free mind inside my body, thank God, from Hinduism or Vedantism, and also from reading science fiction, where you could imagine a possibility if you just changed some rules of the game. So my mind was free, even though I lived in this trap and saw this dysfunctional model of relating. So I dreamed of a better way. From childhood, I dreamed that it's possible to have a long-term, successful, hot, engaged, loving relationship. I dreamed that must be possible. That's not just Hollywood. And the Hollywood version of it is so slanted and sexist. It's just crazy. But like something deeply fulfilling, emotionally and physically. So I had that dream, that propensity, that goal, just organically in myself. And then I set off learning anything I could possibly learn about the human body, about sexual function, about the reproductive system, about menstruation, just from an early age. Any book I could get my hand on at the library that would talk about the penis, the conception, birth, anything. And there was so few resources, so few. Our Bodies, Ourselves was one of the best books I could get my hands on. And that was, but I learned about women's bodies at a young age, about the issues that they face with hormones, for example, about reproduction, conception, about menopause. Anyway, so when I left home at 18 to go to the university, I instantly started getting into relationships, instantly started having sex, and instantly started repeating the patterns I grew up with.
Yep. Right.
I, knew I wanted sex. I knew I wanted love, but I just did the patterns that I'd seen, and it caused a lot of heartbreak. And I cheated. This is what I saw growing up. It's what I did until I got my heart broken. That was the pivotal moment. And I got my heart broke after having broken other people's hearts. Right. So karma smacked me in the face. And I had a huge wake up, and I said, "Ow, that's how bad it hurts. Really? I didn't know that till now." And fell down, right? Fell back a few blocks, and then decided, wow, look back on myself and said, wow, from 18 to like 27, 28, I've been in relationships nonstop for 10 years, hadn't taken a break. I'd had overlapping relationships, sometimes
wow.
2 or 3 at a time, right?
Okay.
I'd never not been in relationships since I started at 18. And I said, wow, I should probably stop being in a relationship. I should take a break. I should take a breath here. I should sit with what just happened and allow myself to get some lessons from that. Right. So I went into a period of celibacy for 2 years and being single. And I got to know myself while continuing to study relationships and communication tools, really. Relationship success strategies, you could say. How can I win in this game that's rigged? Like, this is what I wanted to learn. I saw that I was perpetuating the patterns that were unhealthy. And I said, I don't want to be like that. I was talking a great talk, but I wasn't able to walk the walk in my 20s. I wasn't. Mm-hmm. I didn't have any role models either. I had no one to copy except people doing the bad stuff. So I was just doing what everybody else was doing. So I had this awakening, got into a relationship with myself, started deep diving into my own soul's purpose, and started this conversation with myself about what's my true calling on this planet. It's definitely not programming and making websites. That's for freaking sure. I gotta say, there's something deeper that's my own unique frequency to give in this world. And I didn't yet know it at 28, but I started the investigation process, and it took me another 10 years to uncover it.
Well, and I wanted to ask, it's so huge. That was just a lot to unpack right there.
Yeah.
Because what's fantastic and that you just don't see men doing are like, I want to understand the female body. And the fact that you were doing that, in high school is remarkable, because that's just not normal. It's not in our culture. It should be normal. It should be normalized. Absolutely. And then I wanted to know, so when you're having relationships, 3 relationships at a time, were you exploring polyamory, or were you just was that like, you were just like, I got 3 girlfriends, they don't know about each other? Like, what was that for you?
I was doing polyamory before I knew about polyamory, before I had the handle to hold on to, before I had the term in the English language to use as a reference point and a definition.
Okay.
And I was doing it badly because I didn't know how to do it well. I didn't have anybody to copy. I did learn about the term polyamory from Morning Glory and Oberon Zell at a pagan all-night fire circle in like 1998. And then everything started flowering in my consciousness about, wow, this is possible in this world. We can do it, but there's a certain toolkit that I need to get mastery of in order to be able to do it.
Because I think, and somebody who's just not great, I've avoided relationships for a long time. That's my own issue. But it's hard enough to have a relationship with one person. And then if you add a couple of people, that seems really dicey. And so maybe you could define the term polyamory for people. So if they're not familiar with this, you hear you have the Mormon tradition, which is a man has many wives because God said he could. And that's not what this is. So maybe you can define polyamory.
I'll get into polyamory a little bit in our discussion. I just don't want to go too much into polyamory. I don't teach poly. I'm not a poly coach. It's just my personal life. But it's acknowledging that for some people that their inner natural compass is towards having multiple simultaneous loving relationships. Mm-hmm. Whether or not that's culturally acceptable, whether or not they have the tools to be able to do it, just that inside themselves, that's how they naturally feel that, yeah, they can love this person here and that person there
Mhm.
at the same time, not one after another, which is what most people do.
Mhm.
Monogamy used to mean one partner for life. That's the old school traditional meaning. Now it means one person at a time. And so we call that
Ah.
one after another, serial monogamy. And that you could say from a polyamory lens or perspective that that is a way to get our needs met for multiple relationships in our life,
Mm.
but just doing one at a time.
I see.
And that's completely valid. And it's
Yeah.
also much easier to do with the toolkit that we have in North America for common culture. But anyway, poly meaning many, amory meaning love, although one's a Greek term and one's a Latin term. Yeah, so it's a bastardization of two different languages. Anyway, whatever. You could say
Yeah.
multi-amory and it might be better.
Okay. And I think that's just good to know. It was something that because some people need to know that maybe relationships don't work for them because they're built more for polyamory as opposed to monogamy, and they aren't going to be happy. And I think with just one-on-one, and I think that's valid, and people need to know that they have options. America is such a monoculture when it comes to everything. Like, it's just so myopic. So I think it's great for us to widen our vision and know that other things are there. I want to just touch into this thing with Reiki and the ringing in your ears, because we talk so much about like energy work and healing on the show. And I get pings in my ears. That's how my guides will notify me of things every now and again. They'll ping me in my head. So I wanted to know if you would just expand on that a little bit. Like, what was that for you?
Well, I've always had it since my earliest memories. It's here with me right now. It always is. It's like my heartbeat. It's just always there. It's just like air going in and out of my lungs. It's like electricity firing in my neurons. It's just always there. And if I focus on it and bring my attention to it, it gets louder. It's a vibration, it's a hum, it's a ringing. How do I describe that? It's kind of difficult to put words on in the English language because it's a visceral internal sensory experience. And it's also since childhood, I've said when people my grandmother or my mother asked me about it, I'm like, oh yeah, it's my connection to God. As a child, you ask them, oh, you got ringing in your ears, and what is that? I'm like, oh, it's my connection to God. You ask a child, talk about truth. You ask a
Wow.
child something. So it's just always been there. At times, I thought it would drive me crazy, constant, nonstop, 24-hour a day ringing. Hello,
Really?
could drive could make you lose it. But as I've learned to just lean into it and embrace it, and feel how it can reverberate through my body, and then through the practice of learning energy work with Reiki, I was able to experience for the first times when I started learning Reiki how that ringing is absolutely my conduit to connecting to that energy. And then
Hmm.
I can, with my intention and my focus, I can put it in my hands if I want to put it in my hands, or have it flow down my arm if you want to be body based, and have that same frequency of vibration. You could say a high tone, like, I don't know, 20,000 hertz, 30,000 hertz, like the highest frequency that you can hear with your human ears. Like, how
Yeah.
high is that? Like,
Hmm.
like a mosquito frequency, like
Hmm.
super high, right? Like, I put that in my hands and it works. It works. Amazing things can happen.
That's wild, because I just on a personal note, because I've had ringing forever and I've never thought about letting it expand through my body.
Okay,
Um,
sure.
so that is something that I will take with me to work on myself.
The practice that I use that's useful for me is just to, with my eyes closed, intentionally feel my palm vibrating in resonance at the same frequency that I hear in between my ears. Just
Wow.
start feeling it. You start feeling it. You don't wish you would feel it. You don't try to feel it. You just make yourself feel it by bringing your focus and sensation and awareness on your
Mhm.
palm, and then here also at the same time, and try to bring this, like the vibrating mosquito level high frequency that you hear in between your ears. Oh yeah, there it goes. Right now it's working. The Reiki's flowing.
That's cool. That is cool. I will not deviate into a side
Right.
conversation about that
Okay.
because I really want to. So we'll keep on task here. So I wanted to kind of break down some of the basics before we get into
Sure.
the wealth of information that's here. So I wanted to talk about some of the typical, or I want to frame this in such a way that's useful, that we're not having the same conversation over and over about our culture's messed up toxic relationship with sex. So I would ask you, what are some of the toxic beliefs that people have about their sexuality that they don't realize they're toxic, that are so normalized that, somebody listening to the show would be like, oh, I thought that was normal. Anything that you can kind of peel the bandage off and say, no, that's actually something that you're going to be tripping over if you don't pay attention to that.
Oh my God, there's so many. I can write lists about
I
it.
know.
That jealousy is a sign of love, or a measure of love, or an indicator of love. I must be loving him because I'm jealous that he's blah, blah, blah.
Mm.
Um, no, that's just jealousy. It's not a sign of love. It could be a sign of enculturated beliefs that about ownership being, or there's another one right
Mm.
there that relationships mean ownership. And we've come a long way. Thank you, United States of America and feminism over the last 100 years, that women are not property. They're not to be passed down from a
Oh my
father
God,
to
yeah.
a new husband, although we still practice that in common modern day wedding ceremonies.
Right.
The roots of it are rooted in slavery and ownership, tribal culture.
Wow.
So no, possession and jealousy are not signs of love. That's signs of enculturated belief systems. Love to me is free. Like you want your dove to fly and unfold itself. You want the lotus to blossom and unfurl into the most beautiful thing that it can unfold into. Um, that that periods are bad. That's another belief. That periods are ugly. That's women's business. That they're dirty.
Mm.
We can't talk about that stuff. No, that's the source of life. That is
Right.
the opposite of dirty. What's cleaner and more pure than the source of life? The possibility of conception, our blood, our DNA, our cells. Oh
Wow.
my God, you want to talk about divinity? It's the opposite of something to be ashamed about. It's something to be aware of and understand how to dance with, understand how to nurture, understand how to teach your children about, not to be ashamed of. I mean, my mother, I hope she won't be mad at me for sharing this story. At 12
Tell
in
her.
junior high school, she was wearing all white clothes, white pants, white shirt,
Uh-oh.
went to school that day. Her mother, my grandmother, had not told her about menstruation. She had not
Oh.
learned about conception.
Yep.
She didn't know the biological process by which a woman can be fertile. And she got her period at school wearing white pants that day. And she, of course, how many women get blindsided by their first period because no
Yes.
one gave them a freaking handle to hold on to
Yes.
beforehand, right? And then there she is with a red stain on the butt of her pants, traumatized, afraid she's dying, right? And I'm just tingling right now. What a
Me
heinous
too.
failure of education. And why? Because of shame, right? It is not something to be ashamed of. It's something is powerful, right? It's natural. It's the source of all of our human species. Like it's not something to be ashamed of and kept in the dark. Let's talk about this. Let's give good, solid information. Let's give support, and so that they understand, wow, that's power right there. That's your woman's power or female power. Anyway, there's so many things I can talk about here.
Well, yeah, and I think that what I want to say about that is that really it's the systematic depowering of women because in indigenous cultures, not that I have firsthand experience, but from what I've read, like in terms of different, because I've always been about women's empowerment and egalitarian for everybody. And so from what I understand in a lot of indigenous, cultures, that's women's power time. It's like they hang out with other women. It's a sacred time. And in America, it's women are just expected to suck it up. And what I what I love that's happening now is that there are now menstruation simulator devices that there are some great videos out there that men will strap it on, like strap on this menstruation simulator, because they did that with pregnancy, but then they have one just for menstruation. And the men are just like brought to their knees. And then the same device is like, put on the women and it's put all the way up and they're like, is that it? Oh yeah, that's not even a bad day. That's not even a bad day. And so like men don't have the concept of the physical pain that women endure. and are expected to do and keep productive. Otherwise, you'll lose your position in the masculine oriented workforce. No matter what, it's still masculine oriented because that's our culture. It's team oriented, not tribe oriented. And so it's like, there's just so much eye-opening for to be done in this culture. I just wanted to share that because it was awesome to see these men like this cripple falling down, and for the women to be like, oh, is that it? Is that high? Oh, anyway.
There's so much we can talk about there. Let's talk about for a moment our vocabulary in our language, our American English. When you want to call somebody weak and pathetic, you call them a pussy. Ugh, it just makes my skin crawl. It's so, pardon me, I'm going to swear, it's so fucking derogatory. I just hate it. Or you want to call somebody a jerk, a contemptible person, you call them a dick. Oh, he's such a dick. Oh God, my ears just started ringing. It's so vulgar. It's so derogatory. It's so demeaning. The source of all life, you're going to call somebody pathetic and weak, you call them the source of all life. Hello, the pussy, the vagina can take a pounding. Exactly. That thing can go this big and pass a head and shoulders through. 2 or 3, if you want to have doubles or triplets, can have the vagina, the vulva is so strong, so it can expand 40 times its resting size. That is a symbol of strength and elasticity and power.
Yes.
It's not a symbol of weakness. And to call somebody a dick as a derogatory thing is also a disservice. The penis is the source of all life. Yes, the womb will carry it to term, but the penis is the source of all life. They come from the man, right? This is the divine masculine, right? It penetrates and seeds life, right? To call that the same as you would call a derogatory term to a person is such a disservice. Talk about enculturated shame. Like if we don't look at our language first and our just non-thinking pattern of calling somebody a dick or a pussy, like we don't know how we're perpetuating the problem.
That's interesting because I've always had that thing of like, because especially growing up as a gay man gay little boy, who didn't know he was gay, or just all that confusion of growing up not heterosexual in America. So the thing of being called a pussy was the most shaming thing you could be called, because it's like the weakest thing, and again it's this systemic disempowerment of women and seeing always women as the weaker sex, as opposed to acknowledging that, without them, there is no life. There is no regenesis on the planet. You just can't have it. And it's funny because when I think of dick, I think of the unconscious cock. And so I think of the dick as somebody who's just like penetrating because it's their right. It's like you're a hammer, so everything's a nail. And so I see that as that connotation. But yeah, to take our sexual organs and reduce them to like a weak trait or a bad trait is probably unconscious on a mass level, for sure.
What's more beautiful than our genitals? Let's talk about this for just a moment. What are flowers? You want to show somebody you love them, you go buy them flowers. What are flowers? They're sex organs. They're beautiful. Look at a flower, look at a rose, look at an orchid. Oh my God, aren't they exquisite? Right. And us, beautiful, lovely species that we are, our sex organs are wired for pleasure. Thank God. They could be wired for pain, but they're not. They're wired for pleasure. That's a wonderful thing for the perpetuation of the species, but it could be different biologically, biochemically. Our neurochemistry could totally be different. Anyway, so like these things that are sources of pleasure, we name and nickname as sources of shame to hide. I mean, you can't even see a guy's penis in a movie if he's getting out of bed and walking to the bathroom to go pee first thing in the morning. We're so ashamed that we can't even see a penis. We don't even have nude bathing beaches, stuff like that. We can't even see it. Like, so of course we're locked up about it. We can't even talk about it. Guys don't talk about their penises with each other. Maybe women talk about their vulvas and vaginas and cervixes and uteri and ovaries with each other more than men talk about their penises and testicles. But in my experience, guys only talk about that with a urologist or a doctor.
Yep.
We don't talk about it. We're cut off from it. So how can we possibly move into an empowered place if we can't even discuss it? So anyway, what are we doing here today? Thank you, Kat. Thank you, Linda. We're discussing it. We're showing people that it's okay to talk about this stuff. It doesn't have to be dirty. It can actually be lighthearted, and it can shift us away from being locked up and in paralysis and shame to feeling, oh, wow, that I can unlock some hidden keys about my personal erotic, sexual, intimate, sensory, genital life by allowing myself permission to discuss this with someone, or even just listen to a podcast about it. Give yourself permission to listen to other people talking about it. That is a hell of a good first step.
Yeah. And I think that, gosh, there's so much, because I really want to talk. One of the things I really want to talk about today is the merging of your sexual chakra, your sex chakra, and your heart chakra, especially for men. It's whether you're gay or straight, that just seems to be a huge challenge, is to get those two things synchronized and aligned and swimming in the same direction. So before we get into that, though, I do want to talk a little bit about and kind of debunk or just clear the room and talk about toxic masculinity and maybe something called toxic femininity, which I would call, and feminism. And so these are terms that we're throwing out there. Everyone's got a different view depending on the person you talk to. So that we're going to say there's no right or wrong answers. There's just the understanding we have currently. And I would say, and this is just my take on it in the moment, that maybe toxic femininity would be, in order to be a feminine woman, I have to adhere to the principles of our culture, and my waist size needs to fall in this category. My boobs need to look like this, the thing of adapting into a cultural prescript of what it means to be feminine, versus maybe feminism, which was all about, when at first, the onset of feminism, well, there's stages of feminism. Like in the 70s, when feminism was big, it was a lot about, the stereotypical burning your bra. You don't need to, shave your body hair. You can break all the rules. Where are you in all that conversation?
I don't love getting into talking about masculinity and femininity. I don't love it. I am a diehard feminist. I worked for years at Family Planning, which is one of the most feminist organizations on the planet. Two primary tenets: you want to empower women in the modern age, give them access to birth control, and give them education. So simple. So how many women are pregnant by 14, 15 in two-thirds of the countries of the world today? Where I live right here, Roman Catholic, repressed machista culture, average first pregnancy is 14. Why? Because women don't have access to birth control, and they don't have access to lots of education.
Wow. That's Costa Rica.
Anyway, so
surprising.
Yeah. Which is Central America, which is a Latino culture. Anyway, so I'm absolutely feminist. Yes, empower women, give them birth control and access to education. Yes, but then I'm going to work with the guys, because I think guys need more help than the women do. The women have such a rich sisterhood and feminist community supporting them. They help each other so much. But nowadays, men have been so emasculated from 80, 100 years of feminism that they've been shamed. Oh, you're part of the patriarchy. You're a misogynist. You're just part of the problem. That they've been taught. So many men have been taught not to be able to bring their sexual power to the table. And now there's this rebound happening where so many women are doing empowerment work, and they're saying, "Where are all the empowered men? All I am is surrounded by these spiritual nice guys." And I hear from women all the time. The most common fantasy I hear about from women is that they want to be ravished. What is ravished? That's, as I define it, being taken powerfully, feeling the clarity of your partner's desire for you in a context or a container of safety, because you built the trust with each other. Women are hungry for that, but the guys are like, I can't do that. We're in #MeToo. I can't do that. I'm going to be labeled a player. I'm going to be a male supremacist. they don't know, and they don't have role models to do it either. What, in Hollywood movies? No. Captain America, Spider-Man? No. When I talk about toxic masculinity, it's these traditional, to me, it's these traditional narratives of the guy who locks his feelings down and takes it for the team, right? On basic moral principles that are 100 years out of date. They can't survive the litmus test of 2021 or 2022. Toxic femininity, I don't really want to get into that too much. I don't get too much into the masculine feminine thing. But I will say that I am sick and tired of man bashing. I am so over it. All these spiritual women and sisterhood communities just bashing men left and right, when what I see in the world today is a huge rise of men working to make the world better, working on accessing the divine masculine, trying to find a way to access their sexual power and bring it out in an egalitarian manner. It doesn't help to man bash, and it also doesn't help to like stick the knives in and twist them. That is something I've seen women do so much more than men in my life in arguments.
Give an example. What does that look like?
It's this vicious cutting tendency in arguments to cause pain in the other person, specifically to cause pain, bring up past wrongs and then twisting them, causing more guilt. It is counterproductive to co-creating the reality that you want with your partner. Fundamentally, I don't mean don't bring out your anger. I don't mean don't let your partner feel your power. I don't mean close your eyes to things that your partner's done bad in the past. I don't mean any of that. But this man bashing, twisting, cutting, causing pain thing, the vicious Kali energy, doesn't help co-create in a lot of situations. Sometimes it's warranted. And I don't want to get into the minutia of that hypothetical situations. But you asked me, what do I see? And I see too much man bashing happening. Now, I also see that reversed in locker room talk with guys commodifying women. Okay, but I see a lot less of that today than I did 20 years ago. All right, a lot less. I see a lot more of the rise of the divine masculine and men searching for tools for sacred sexuality and egalitarian relationships today than I did 20 years ago. So just going with the trend here, how do we do this? I say let's get beyond like our concepts of masculinity and femininity and just get into what is real for me today. What am I evolving in this moment? What are you evolving in this moment? Maybe you could call that masculine or feminine. I'm moving beyond that to just calling it authenticity and then communicating that reality with your partner and teasing that out of them. Maybe I might be feeling feminine today, to use that label. Maybe I want to be ravished. Maybe I want to be thrown up against the wall and feel my partner's power, who happens to be a woman because I'm mostly heterosexual. Is that feminine? Is that just to call that feminine? I don't know. Anyway, I'm moving beyond that in my teachings because I'm just an educator. That's what I do. I teach. I love to teach. Anyway, there's a world beyond the binary of masculine and feminine, of penis and vagina, anyway, just that. There is a world beyond that where we can understand that we are always in flux, and that a labeling system like masculine, feminine on a polarity spectrum is useful as a teaching tool for certain understandings, but there is a ceiling to it.
Yeah. It's like a starting level.
Yep.
Yeah. And I like that. I mean, what I get with this is that we're so naive and inexperienced with our own sexual energy and our sexuality that because it's just taboo, from, the babies come from a stork, like all these things where we're hiding sexuality from our kids and how sexual energy works. We don't know how sexual energy works because there's no one passing it down. That's been lost, in terms of understanding your kundalini and how that energy rises in the body and how it manifests in your sexual energy, because it's a lot of sexual energy. And what I'm hearing you doing is just like breaking holes in the wall and saying, this can be a door. This continuum is lovely. Welcome to level 1. There are so many other levels if you're willing to let go of your of your fear and listen to what you really want and stop being afraid of what you really don't want. Because you might be a man who wants to wear ladies lingerie and feel good and sexy about your feminine energy, like whatever that is for you, whatever that fantasy is. There's, like you said, there's so many fantasies, and we just, they're all so demonized as being weird or strange, or and it's like, well, we don't understand our full sexual expression. So it comes out, I feel like, in these ways, trying to express itself, and it shows up as kinky because we don't have a open, even playing field for it all. What do you think about that?
I'm just going to take a deep breath and let it all go. All right. I wrote this book called Conscious Cock because I identified that the demographic, by my reasoning, that needs the most help is your average straight guy in North America. He has been emasculated, and at the same time, simultaneously is told, oh, I want your power. I want to feel you. That's a rock and a hard place. That is maddening. That's crazy making. So he doesn't know how to exit that paralysis. But there isn't like a foundation level of what I'm going to call integrated education about physiological sex education, who, what, when, where, and how, the plumbing. Okay, we could say that, right?
Mm-hmm.
That goes beyond don't catch an STI and don't get pregnant. Not just sex education that entails pleasure-based sex education, you could say. And then like relationship communication strategies, communication tools, authenticity tools, protocols for bringing up hard conversations, stuff like that. And then tools for mining what you actually are afraid to recognize in yourself, your own internal desires and resistances and boundaries. How many women have not been able to ever have their own opinion because it's just been drowned out of them by a domineering father, or a domineering church, or societal expectations that you're going to be the caregiver, you're going to raise children, you're going to take care of your mom and your grandmother, you're going to do the laundry, clean the house, and that's it. And they've never actually been able to form their own opinion in their own life because they've been taught not to do that, right? Like, it is absolutely epidemic. So foundation 101 level common integrated education of communication tools, sex education, self-awareness, and authenticity tools. Now, if we can establish that as a baseline, that I know what's going on inside me and I have tools to communicate that to another person, and I understand how the other sex works biologically. I'm a man. I understand how menstruation and conception work well, not just a cursory understanding of it, and sex techniques that are pleasure-based. That's going to bring our hearts into play and not just be what we see in porn, which is just actors pretending to be machines. That's all that is. That's just selling something. So anyway, that's why I wrote this book, is to try to create a basic common denominator for what I consider to be a 101 level threshold of education for the possibility of long-term relationship success that is sex positive. Where, yeah, you want to have pleasure and intimacy and sex in your relationship, your erotic evolution. You don't want that to end after marriage.
Right.
If you get married, you want that to continue to evolve, because you're going to be different 20 years from now. You're going to have different interests, different boundaries than you have now. So you need a structure that allows you to embrace the coming changes, handle change and flexibility, rather than only being in love with the version of the person that you fell in love with. And if they change, you can't handle it and everything breaks.
Yeah, I feel like at that point you're in love with a projection, or and you're not in love with actually what's there. Miss Linda, did you have any questions or thoughts at this point? Because I want to make sure you're in here.
We were talking in the chat, and I was just saying how difficult it must be for men in just even approaching a woman sexually. And, you've got some women that want asked every single time, and other women that just want to be ravaged in the moment and have that spontaneity without, with being given signals that it's okay, right? Never against, but having that trust. And a guy's having to walk that fine line of, is it okay? Is it not okay? Is it okay? Is it not okay? And then on the other hand, women who have that healthy sexuality and that drive are called sluts. So, it's just this dichotomy in our entire culture that needs to be readdressed. And early on, we were talking about how in movies, it's totally okay to see people decapitated and stabbed and murdered, but it's not okay to show a breast. It's not okay to show intimacy. That's where you get nailed. And what a twisted society that those are our norms. It's not really a question, just a commentary from a woman's point of view and from our discussions.
That's rich.
So I guess if there was a question to follow that, Kristopher, would be advice for men who are walking this crazy line of
Great.
trying to approach women and creating a healthy relationship in that. And I think it just starts with healthy discussion.
Well, that's what my teachings are all about, is trying to give him an actually functional toolkit that doesn't cause trauma, that doesn't perpetuate past trauma, that isn't dysfunctional, that actually what am I trying to say? A compass metaphor for sailing a sailboat, like changes your course heading and gets you moving in the right direction. Doesn't matter how fast you're going, it just matters what your course heading is. Like if you're going in the wrong direction, you're never going to get where you want to go. Let's get you corrected over here and then make baby steps, but in the right direction. So I also want to say I'm not a dating coach. I do not teach pickup, how to pick up women. I find that seething and repugnant to my value system. I find it like usury, and I don't want anything to do with it. I teach long-term relationship success strategies. Now, you might not be in a relationship. You might want to have a relationship, but I want you to have the tools where you can actually go really deep and have that be really nurturing for both of you. There's no guarantees because you can't control the other person. They might not be able to get where you want to go, but all you can do is control your own energy. And the sweet byproduct of controlling your own energy is that you get to role model for the other person a way of being and relating that they may not have ever seen before. Not that I want you to be a teacher, and I don't want anybody to have a project boyfriend or a project girlfriend. No. But how do we help each other rise other than by being the vibration that we want to be in the world ourselves? And then that gives a rallying point for everyone around us, a reference point for everyone around us. Now, thanks for your patience, Linda. Now that I've said all that, how to help that guy or that person, because it might be a woman, might be any gender, is to give them examples of how they can be vulnerable and authentic while not overstepping and oversharing, while learning how to pace the other person's verbal and nonverbal communication without selling their soul. Because we all know the sacred prostitute archetype. I've been it. We probably all have been it in different situations in our life where we're doing so much for the other person, right? But where are we taking care of ourselves? So learning how to bring up your truth, how to communicate your truth while pacing the other person, while giving them the opportunity to lean back in. What happens when you learn those tools is you learn communication as an assessment tool for the other person. Are they able to communicate their difficult truths to you? Are they really locked up and unable to talk about intimacy or their erotic edges or desires? And with that assessment tool, there comes something of burgeoning, welling up in ourselves of confidence in our own standards and requirements, having standards rather than just taking whatever comes because we're so starved for love and touch and intimacy. I think we can all feel that, at least at some points in our lives, that we've just been so hungry for and a drop of affection, right?
Yeah.
So having standards is good, but also recognizing our hunger, our innate hunger. Hunger isn't bad, it's natural. It's a sign from our body mind system that there's a need that needs to be met. I'm not talking about addiction. I'm talking about hunger. Hunger, we've experienced hunger every day. We need to have our hearts be seen by another person and our bodies touched by somebody who understands us. It's a long, rambling way to say that learning how to communicate your truth and elicit another person's truth is the gateway to hopefully or possibly having a relationship of deep, true authenticity with another person. You want to have a sexy, engaged sexual relationship? Well, that's the gateway. Do you want to have a more platonic, loving friendship? It's still the gateway. What's real for you? It's learning how to mine that in yourself and put that on the table for the other person while trying to tease out from them, demonstrate that you're a safe space for them to share their truth, and then seeing is there compatibility.
Wow.
It might not be what you want, but there might be a sweet spot for both of you there.
That is so rich. I just feel like, because I know that this is not like, this is your thing that you're doing. It's not your main source of income by any means. You've got other things going on.
I'm sorry, Kat, I don't have any income here. Okay. I make $1 a book. That doesn't even pay for my internet every month. Okay. let alone my assistant. No, this is a passion project. No, I make no money here. I just given this to the world.
Look how passionate, because I'm just seeing you on a stage. I'm just seeing you on a stage talking about this. So I wanted to ask you then, let's talk a little about love. Because I think that is the thing so often. Well, anyway, I'll ask my questions. So do you need to love yourself first before finding real love in a relationship, or is it possible to have a loving relationship where you learn how to love yourself? Because in my psyche, it's like, I'm always like, I'm dating myself. I'm figuring out myself. Until I really love myself, I'm not going to be ready to be in a relationship with anybody else, which might be a great way of just keeping off the fear of, what's going to happen with intimacy. Will I be loved? Will I be abandoned? But what is your take on, do I need to love myself first before finding real love, or can real love bring self-love? What's your take?
I imagine both are true. If we
clarify
the minutia of any given example, I imagine we can say both are true and both are false, depending on the example. But I find the crucible of a loving relationship to be an exquisite laboratory for self-unfolding. If that laboratory is safe, then we can touch into our courage more than we can if we're not in a safe space. So a dysfunctional relationship or an abusive relationship, it could be financially abusive, verbally abusive, physically abusive, emotionally abusive. I mean, there's so many different forms of abuse, is not a safe container. I will not say that is, from my perspective, a place to explore loving yourself or loving another person. Karmically, it very well may be what your soul wants to learn or address in this life. Yes, but I'm just talking in this human ego that I'm embodied, Kristopher. I find learning love happens best in safe spaces, because that's where we can repattern our neurobiology of past traumas and hurts and fears and losses, and replace them with patterns based on loving touch and trust and safety. Then we become more courageous. Then we can unfold, we can open our shell, we can take a layer of armor off. So you can also do that in periods of or entire life, doesn't matter what time frame, by being alone through self-love. Absolutely. And you identified it and labeled it, that like you can use self-love and self-development as a shield against the possibility of hurt from an external relationship. So there's a pitfall there, or a pothole, or a landmine you might step on in your own hope to expand and evolve into the next layer of your own loving self. So I think learning boundaries and consent as a self-empowerment practice. If somebody doesn't know what that means, go to my website, consciouscock.com, go to the downloads page. There's free downloads there. There's a workshop I recorded called Boundaries and Consent, 6 Rules to Change Your Life. It teaches you how to tell somebody no. Maybe it's your mom giving you too many mashed potatoes on Thanksgiving and you just don't want them and you've never been able to say no to her in your entire life. Okay, well, that could be a baby step, right? But maybe it's like lovemaking with your partner where you're not actually getting pleasure. You're just getting a few scraps here and there, but it's not actually what you want. You're not being met the way you want. You're not being touched the way you want. Maybe it's too rough. It's not emotionally present, like whatever it might be. Like learning how to honor your own internal messages of what you want and what you don't want, what your preferences are, that it's okay to have preferences, and then asking yourself, what are they? And then having the tools to communicate them to another person. These are the baby steps that get us going in this pathway towards actually living our own authentic life rather than playing the role that was handed to us by whoever, putting on the costume that we're supposed to play, handed to me by my dad. Like, oh, you should be this way. This is what a man is. To hell with all that.
Right. Because it's nice to break that down, because it can also be the rebellion of that. This is what my dad said I should be, so I'm rebelling against it. I'm doing all these other things that are opposite, but it's still not quite you. And I love that you can flag the pitfalls on either side of like somebody who can't feel love unless they're in a relationship versus somebody who's not willing to be in a relationship until they know love inside and out. Like each one of these has its slippery, sticky points, right? Like something's going to happen because there's a lesson there. It's still not in balance.
I love it. Thank you for saying it so clearly. That is great. Very well said. I'm going to steal that. Thank you.
Steal it.
Make a note right now.
That's awesome. I'm honored. So I want to talk to you about this expression that it's part of our cultural language, and I want to be able to break it down a little bit more, but it's the expression of giving your heart to another person. I want to give my heart to you. You know, like this whole thing of marriage is that now you are the caretaker of my heart. And it seems dangerous to me as somebody who's relationship phobic. I say stroking my chest hairs. As somebody who's relationship phobic, like, what is your take on the expression of giving your heart to another person? Is that person supposed to co-parent my heart? What's your take on it? I'll just shut up and let you talk.
Oh God, you complete me, Kat.
There it is.
2 halves making a whole.
Yes,
oh, it's
yes,
so
exactly.
Hollywood. Screw it all. It's so dysfunctional. It's so romantic though, isn't it? I mean, like these Hollywood movies, they pull on my heartstrings. Oh, I want to love like that. Well, no, actually I don't. No, actually, I want to be a whole person and I want to know myself as I am right now. And then tomorrow, as I unfold a little bit differently, and next year and the year after, I want to have permission to change in my life and evolve and shift and reverse. And I want my partner to have that too, for partners. Give your heart to somebody. I don't know. There's definitely something there about wanting safety. Yes. That comes up for me. There's something there about wanting freedom of expression. That comes up for me. These things are beautiful. To be able to be safe enough to love freely and it's not going to scare the other person away. That's a big one that I've experienced in my life a lot. I'm a lot to handle. Hold on. I'm a lot to handle. Okay. Like I am so blessed that my partners, I have 2, accept me and can handle me loving as freely and as abundantly and as powerfully as I do, because I'm a lot. And I've done this thing. I want to give my heart to my partners, my partner, my love, whoever I'm in a relationship. I want to give my heart. I want to open it wide open, take all the armor off and just love freely in all the different love languages and all the different ways that I can find to love. I have so much love to give. I want to give it all. And that's overwhelming. I want to be free flowing. Oh yeah. For most people, that's overwhelming. They can't handle it. It's just like, the blazing sun. I need shade, you know? So there's a beautiful part to that I respond to, giving your heart to someone. Yes. yes, I don't see that as limitation. I see that as fundamentally a beautiful thing. I want to share the best that I have to offer with you. I want to shine love on you and adore you, etc. But if it smacks of ownership because it's in the context of the cultural programming that we've been handed by, or that we breathe every day, then that can be dysfunctional and limiting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not healthy, not inspiring. It's not giving your partner good nutrition and sending them on their way to find out what they want to do in their lives. Like, no. Does that hit
Well,
where you wanted to go with that, or did I miss the mark?
I just wanted your take on it. I just wanted to take your take on it. And good Lord, if I ever find a man, a gay man or bisexual man who's into me that has that capacity of like, I just want to, gosh, I have so much in my heart I want to share with you. I'm gonna be like, oh my God, me too, finally. Because I feel like I'm that way too, where I just love, even though I haven't had a bunch of them, I'm a really good boyfriend. I'm good in relationships because I am very loving. I'm very conscientious. I like to communicate, you know. So good Lord, if I find a queer version of you, that will be a party that day. So then this whole thing of like, you know, somebody, I've given my heart away, and at what point do I like? So I'm giving my heart to my partner.
Oh,
I've given you my heart.
giving it away. Now that would be different.
I want to know like what's the
Yeah.
slippery slope of becoming codependent, where all of a sudden I've given my heart away in the relationship, and now my partner's responsible for my happiness. Like giving your heart, maybe that's a good delineation, is giving your heart to your partner versus giving your heart away, where they're now responsible.
Yeah, right. It's such a tricky dance. I mean, I've taken a few tango lessons. I just look at people dancing tango and I'm like, oh my God, it's the most beautiful thing. The passion, right? The balance, like the fast quickness of it. You know, this feels like that. Like how do we dance this dance with our own energy of sharing it and not giving it away and losing it, right? How do we maintain ourselves in our center but open ourselves to be permeable and sharing without falling off balance, right?
Making
So,
them responsible for your happiness. You know what I mean? That's the thing, is like making the other person, holding them accountable in the relationship without making them responsible for your happiness. That just seems like that's a fine line. What do you think?
you know, there's this concept that the Buddha taught. I'm going to bastardize it here. You know, third person, or ever play telephone, you know, that like the root of all suffering is attachment, right? This is very commonly understood as a Buddhist tenet. And I am not Buddhist. I like attachment. I want to
Mm,
attach in this life, on this planet. I want deep attachment. I want to build a web of interconnected roots with my beloveds. This is, I don't know that I'm here to ascend to Buddha self-enlightenment in this life. I really want the deep yum. I want the free flowing passion and self unfolding, and I want that for my beloveds. I want that for my everyone in my little sphere here. So I like attachment. I think attachment is good. I think bonding is. I think people are so scared of bonding because they've been hurt and because they don't see good role models of it. But yet we all have this. Maybe not all, but many of us have a deep. It's in our belly, our gut, like yearning to be seen and understood and loved for who we are,
100.
and to have multiple people love us for who we are, not just
100.
one, not be in scarcity, but like have friends and family and lover or a partner that really wants us and is there for us. So I how do we do that? We do that by taking chances. But then if we end up in a pattern that is dysfunctional, that's not healthy, right? So how do we live our life and have a long life? Well, we do our best to have a healthy lifestyle. Let's do the same thing in relationship. Let's do our best to maintain health in our relationship. Nutritious patterns, not addictive patterns, right? Like too much of anything can be unhealthy, and including too much reservation can be unhealthy. Have a party once in a while. Like, so it's this dance of leaning into the other person and coming back to your own balance point, right? And by leaning in and coming back to your own balance point, you experience the edge of balance, right? So
Mm,
go ahead, lean into being too loving. Go ahead, do
mm,
it. Lean into attaching too much. Go ahead, do it. And then experience that excessive weight on the other side as being out of balance, and then get that in your muscle memory, get that in your biochemistry. Oh yeah, that was me extending myself too far. That's unhealthy. And then experience yourself coming in and relating to yourself autonomously, separately from other people, and not sharing yourself, not being permeable. Bring your aura in, put your armor on, and feel that as how closed off you are, how no one can get to you, how you've alienated touch. Feel that, get that in your body as, oh yeah, that's not in balance either.
Mm-hmm.
And then dance the dance.
Good Lord,
it's always dancing the edge of balance. Sometimes it's fast, sometimes it's slow, sometimes you fall, but get back up and engage again.
It's because it's balance in movement. It's balance in movement forward, which means you might fall off the bike, you might fall off the tightrope, whatever it is that you're balancing on. But the thing is that you're at least in some sort of movement. And what I was just catching within myself is that it's like, well, so when I get into a relationship, I want to make sure I don't ever get codependent. I want to make sure I don't ever, I don't go into the red zone. So how can I avoid that? Which is all about control. And you're saying release the control and fall and find out what happens, fall one way or the other, but be in some sort of movement so you can have the discovery, because that's where the rich learning is from.
Okay, let's say I'll respond and say yes, but within the context of always learning, always focusing on trust and safety, building spaces of trust and safety for you to have those dances in.
Oh, that's so good.
Okay, all right. Like if you ever don't know what to do in a relationship on anything, like, but yet you want the other person and you want to lean in, like focus on building more trust. If you're now analyzing a person who wants to be with you, ask yourself, are they building trust with you? At every step in your journey with another person, focus on building more and more trust. If you want it to work, if you want it to go forward within the context of more and more trust, you can fall, you can get hurt. It's okay. If you trust the other person and they trust you, it's all right to be human. It's okay if we hurt each other once in a while. We love each other. We can forgive if we are in a container of trust. But if there's been repetitive issues or experiences of betrayal, then there's no trust. You can't. How can you explore your edges in a container of no trust? You can't. You can't open your heart.
That's right.
You can't take the risk of falling. You can't. You've got to preserve yourself. You must take care of your soul.
There has to be a safe container in order to explore the edges. That is dead on. Linda, do you want to hop in? I see you've come off mute.
Yeah, I do actually. One of the things I keep hearing is this dance within yourself of looking at the past, but not living in the past, learning from the past, exploring it, but not bringing it into the current relationship, understanding your part in it, and recognizing when things don't feel right and those intuitions come up and say, red flag, this isn't good, but understanding your part in this and then your actions. Is that what I'm hearing? More about presence in the moment and exploring.
Linda, can you ask me that question again and just phrase it a little differently? Just approach it from a slightly different. Yeah, just ask me again.
So I think what I'm hearing from you is that as we step into relationships, one of the things that I hear from a lot of people, and I experience sometimes, is the bringing up the past all the time. You were talking about those things that can kill a relationship. It's bringing up the past all the time and not being in the moment. But also when you're experiencing a new relationship, if you have had difficult relationships in the past, owning, like being really conscious of what you're pulling in from the past and trying to tag it in that relationship versus, having the sincere, hey, wait a minute, this doesn't feel right. This has been an uncomfortable situation. I've had this. And exploring it and really listening and tuning in and having those conversations. Is that what you're saying? I know
it's interesting to have you ask this question about past experiences and bringing it to the present moment. And our intuition and guidance in the present moment. Because we are all creatures that have come from our pasts and grown since conception to where we are now. And so we are the aggregate of our life's experiences and the actions that we've done, the choices we've made, and the impacts that life has had upon us. And we bring this, let's call it baggage, luggage. Let's say luggage, not baggage. We bring this luggage to us today. Here I am, and here's my luggage. And here we are in relationship, and there might be patterns that are occurring because of the experiences that we've had in our past. Of course there are. We're not all knowing. We're still in the human body, right? Maybe after we die and we look back on our life, then we're all knowing. But at this moment in time, I can't know all of my patterns. So there is something useful here that you're touching on, which is bringing up for me. It's a really useful practice to constantly be searching for your blind spots. It's a really wonderful thing to be aware that you've got blind spots, even if you don't know what they are. Just as a matter of course. I can't know everything. I must have blind spots. In there is some humility about being human. I'm not the best in the world. I don't have it all figured out. And this is a good lesson for a lot of people with penises, a lot of men. Like, it's okay to ask for directions. It's okay to not have it all figured out. You can drop the ego pretense that you have to have it all figured out, that you know everything that you need to know already. You just let go of that shit. It's not functional. If you instead replace that with an attitude of curiosity, that, yeah, sure, I know a bunch, but there's got to be more that I still don't know, then that shifts the energy and makes you orient towards co-creativity. So acknowledging blind spots must be there, and then having a radar that's kind of always looking for them, and openness to other people maybe pointing them out, and not making that mean that, oh, I'm a horrible person, and they don't want me, like the fragile male ego thing. And then having this attitude of curiosity. You can put curiosity on your blind spots. You can put curiosity on your failures. And that can be so healing if you've got trauma that you need to heal with your partner. Maybe you did something wrong that broke their heart. Maybe there's something that you need to come clean about. It can be so healing to approach your failures with an attitude of curiosity, because that triggers humbleness, demonstrates an interest in finding a way to repattern and be better in the future. I don't know if I'm hitting the nail on the head for what you were going for, Linda, but that's what comes up for me.
Yeah, and I just thought curiosity can neutralize defensiveness and those things that can hamper us in our relationships.
It's the cure, the antidote for arrogance.
Ooh.
Or you could say for chauvinism.
I love
curiosity.
that.
All you got to do is just switch from knowing everything into curiosity. No, you're not right. You're only right from one certain perspective, but from a whole other bunch of perspectives, you're wrong. Anyway, curiosity is such a beautiful practice.
That's great. We have like just a few minutes left with you, Kristopher, and I wanted to make sure.
Yeah, why don't we open up for questions for a while?
Well, but before even that, I wanted you to talk about channeling Shiva, because it's something that you brought up in the show talk.
Okay.
And because we're all about channeling in the show, you know what I mean? And so Shiva for you was the sexual male energy and kind of embodying that sexual God energy. And I want people to know that it's possible to experience that, number one, because I was like, you're what now? You're doing what now? So that was an eye opener. And then for men who are being conscious in their sexuality, for them to have that as the experience, like it's a different goal as opposed to, the toxic goals that we maybe have in our heads. So would you speak to your awakening of that sexual energy where it took over you and share that?
I wasn't working to get there. It happened organically due to years of investing in my relationships, years of investing in building more and more trust and safety. And then it just kind of started happening. I would experience it as like with my wife, my partner, we would be in a certain world, and that in a certain lovemaking session, let's say, we would both experience that like a door opened and we went through it, and that there was a world that was 1,000 times larger than the one we were just in, maybe a level up to think in 3 dimensions. And then we're like, oh my God, wait, I thought we had reached the peak. But no, there was another door that leads to a whole other world beyond that.
Wow.
So like this process of like kind of being in a plateau, exploring a world, and then experiencing an up leveling, and then inhabiting that world in our intimate and erotic lives for a while, and then thinking that that was it, that we'd arrived, air quotes, arrived, you know. And then one day another door opens and another layer peels off the onion, and oh my God, there's another level beyond that. Like this process has been occurring in my life because of years of focusing on trust building skills, communication tools, intimacy building. That now the terrain of the erotic world that we get to play in is becoming limitless. Like
Connected
everything
to
is possible. So in that, I'm starting to touch on the limitless, the infinite,
wow.
right? In that, right there. So within that context of our relationship, then I started experiencing being filled with the divine masculine. Another way to say that without using spiritual terminology would be that I started to experience limitless sexual power in my body, in my cock, literally in my genitals, in my testicles, my belly, my hara, and in my diaphragm, and in my breath. Like literally limitless power. How long would you like to have intercourse, honey? I can go as long as you want to go, which is the opposite of what I was at when I was 18, where,
Yep.
you know, a minute of intercourse and my body was overloaded, experienced the explosion and the diffusion of energy, and I was done. Couldn't do it again, you know, until I recovered my energies. The refractory period, 5 minutes when you're 18, maybe it's a half an hour when I'm 40 now, you know, whatever it might be. So the terrain of safety created a playground, a playscape in which this power could come into my body. Where I really got beyond myself, I got beyond my ego identity to this just passionate love for this human being, this soul that I devote my life to, my partner, like wanting to know everything that I can know about her and share everything that I can myself, like complete permeability. Getting beyond holding anything back anymore. Let's peel off another layer. What's underneath that one? Let's peel that one back too. That realm of zooming in beneath all the layers, the infinite in the inward direction, right? Like how deeply can we share ourselves with each other, out past our identities, out past the to-do lists in our life together, out past the fears of our past, you know, touching into the limitless heart in each other. So yeah, I call it Shiva entering me, because I relate to Shiva as the male god in the Hindu Indian pantheon, the father of all, and they have less sex negativity combined with religion and spirituality than we tend to have in North America. For example, they have a concept of the yoni, which is, you know, the vulva, the vagina, you know, the lips of a woman with her thighs coming up, like this yonic shape of the vulva. They call it the yoni. They also have a term for the penis or the cock called the lingam, L-I-N-G-H-A-M. And both terms are reverent. Both terms are adoration. Now, in American English, we have either medical or derogatory. That's it. It's penis and phallus, if you're speaking in medical clinical terms, which are acceptable. As long as we're clinical, it's okay. There's no pleasure here. No pleasure. Nope. Or derogatory. We talked about that already. There's no actual term of adoration or veneration or respect or appreciation or joy or pleasure in the English language. So we can't conceive of the genitals as a beautiful thing because we don't have a word to talk about it. Anyway, in Sanskrit, they do lingam and yoni. So Shiva and his cock is the source of all life, the divine father. Anyway, so I experienced that as a reference point for myself, like something to think of, something to conceptualize. And so, yeah, God energy enters me and I become this limitless sexual power. And I feel it infuse my biochemistry, my neurobiology with this endless power. Like I could go on forever. I don't need an orgasm or an ejaculation, or maybe I have energy orgasms and I don't ejaculate. Limitless power, infinite pleasure potential. And then like our bodies become shrines. Our bed is a temple. And it's not because we said a prayer. It's not because we started burning incense and made a ritual. It's because we created the context of safety through years of practice with each other and self-investigation into finding each other's deep heart. So it's interesting. It's not because we efforted to create ritual and ceremony. It's not because we were praying on our Rudraksha beads. It's not because I was oming with my friends. Like, it's because we built safety and focused on authenticity with each other. You really got me going there, Kat.
This is what I'm saying. That's amazing. Like that's God, who doesn't, so many people would love to learn that. So Linda's got a question from the audience. Want to go ahead and share that?
Sure. I had someone ask if a man tends to withdraw from people when under stress, including his partner, can a couple have a healthy relationship?
I would love to do a question session now. That's great. And let me just check a message here and
We're
see about
getting
my
really
timing.
close to time.
Yeah, exactly. Let me just check in about timing. Hold on. Just
Okay.
procedural point. Let me just look here.
Procedural.
It's not a hard thing that I have to leave it an hour and a half. And I'm really into our discussion. Let me just check for a message here. Yeah, let's do questions and answers discussion for a while, because we need to be able to have a good closing to this container. We've gone really deep here, and people are going to have some things that have come up for them that, we want to honor their courage to share their questions. So yeah, let's go into it. Okay. Can the couple have a healthy relationship if the guy tends to withdraw? Balance metaphor, dance metaphor. Withdrawing is functional. It is necessary. We need to tend ourself. We have to cultivate our own inner garden. We have to. In order to have nourishment to share with our partner, we have to grow it within ourselves, right? And then we also have to tend our relationship and cultivate that garden in order for that to be nourishing both for ourselves and our partner, maybe extended friends and family and the community around us. We have to tend both. So we have to tend both gardens. So the concept of a man cave is a joke. Sometimes it's derogatory, but it's also functional and real, that people with a lot of testosterone have to have time away in order to fill their tanks so that they then are operating on full tanks to have something to share when they go back out to the world. We need this. We have to go inside to fill up so we have something to share when we go back out again. It's absolutely, yes, you definitely can have a healthy relationship. I think it's required. But if it's just always a trigger point pattern, always going to hide, and then not nourishing the relationship, then it's out of balance. So back to the dance metaphor of always finding that edge, going back and forth in the balance point. Nourish yourself, nourish your relationship. Find new ways that you can nourish yourself. Find new ways you can nourish your relationship. Bring in counsel from people that may offer you good counsel, right? Try new things, right? Don't just repeat patterns if they're not giving you the results that you want. These things come up for me. Kat, Linda?
That's great. Well, there was a question earlier on, and it's a little bit of flip of a conversation, but when you have the ringing in your head, how is that different from tendonitis, where people have ringing in their ears? How do you know the difference?
I don't know the difference. I don't know. If I went to a doctor, I'd probably get diagnosed with tinnitus. And where I live, there's cicadas. I don't know if you know this insect. It's a little bug, and they buzz. And there's so many in the trees around us that it can literally make you kind of implode in just too much sensory input. And I know people with tinnitus who've come here and not been able to stay because it just exacerbates it. But I've found, maybe it is tinnitus that I have. You want a medical diagnosis from the allopathic medical system? Sure. I've got tinnitus. All right, great. I don't need a medication. How do I inhabit my body with that diagnosis? I've found that sitting with it, going into it, experiencing how does it throttle? How does it vibrate? How does it wobble? Can I get to know, is it vacillating between one frequency and another? Does it smell? Does it increase and decrease in a wave? Like, can it like make my eardrums rattle like this? Like really getting intimate with exploring it. What I'm talking about is mindfulness-based stress reduction.
Mm.
Instead of pushing it away, we let the pain fully wash over us and hurt as much as it can hurt. We put the spotlight on it. We give it the mic. We say, here you go. You're center stage. Give me all you got. Do your worst. That's hard because we want to guard. We want to resist the pain, stuff like that. But I've found that when I do that, I get, it kind of like gets out its anger or gets out its fury, and then it diminishes because I gave it center stage. And I also get to know it better and know it more intimately. And with that deeper relationship with it, I find a shift can occur. And it's just a practice. It's just a practice. And you have to have a space that you can do it in. You can't necessarily do it while you're driving or writing a letter on the computer or email, but you can create situations where you can have a relationship with it like that. And then that relationship can shift it. You can try putting it in your hands. Got a headache? Put your hand, you're hurting your ears, put your hands on your ears and then let healing energy flow through your hands, down your arms. Put it in your breath, breathe with it. Try an oscillation. Like there's ways to explore the dance with it that can shift your relationship with it and it with you.
That's great insight. I wanted to ask you also, because you have a son.
Yeah.
And so how are you teaching him about his sexuality? Because you are so like, you're like this open fount of integrated sexual spiritual energy, and it's just glorious to behold. So how are you gifting that to your son or supporting him and finding his own rhythm with that?
Oh, it's such an honor to be able to do it. And he's 8, which is such a beautiful, precious age. The precious innocence of 8 or 6 or 7, like, oh my God. And he has a penis. And anybody who's raised a boy knows that the penis is always around. It's always hanging out. Like it's always right there. It's right next to his hands. Like you can't not touch it. Like it's different for vulva owners. Your clitoris is encapsulated and protected by your labia. It's not always getting touched by your pants. It's not always getting rubbed on by things. It is within a few layers of guarding protection. Well, boys don't have that. It's always getting touched. It's always getting stimulated. And he's always dealing with this input of nervous system energy stimulation, and he can't get away from it. Right? Like this is what it means to be in a male body. So anyway, like growing up with that penis hanging around, this sensory center hanging around, I've been able to bring him up in a household without any shame about that. It's okay to touch it. Yeah, let's talk about that. Okay, it's after a bath, for example, go in your room. It's fine to like lay on your bed, fresh out of the bath, all warm and clean, and just like touch your body. Yes, explore your body. Know thyself.
Wow.
But within a container of safety.
Yeah.
And then I've always had just some practical things, a book of anatomy on the table. Skeletal system, muscular system, digestive system, nervous system, like all the 12 or 11 different systems of the body, endocrine, whatever, and it's got reproductive system. There's a cutaway with the belly, like just a good anatomical charts book. Kids are so interested in what's inside the body. So just give them a map. Then of course he asks about the vagina. Of course he asks about how conception. I'm like, well, I talk to him in language that he can understand. I haven't talked to him about sperm and ovum. No, I talked about planting seeds, that your testicles, which I call nuts, like peanuts, because he's got these little peanuts, little testicles, little boy, right? Oh, you get the little peanuts. You have there's little tiny seeds in the peanuts, and they go into the vagina, and that's what plants the seed there, which grows into a baby. So he gets the concept. He doesn't need all the details. He just needs the concept. That's all it is.
God, so that's so good.
He understands. He's at the age where he understands that love making is a beautiful thing that bonds his mother and I together, that we want to practice often, and that we want privacy when we do it. Right? Give us a minute. We need to have some time alone together right now for our hearts. So he gets it. He'll spend time downstairs by himself, so mom and I can have a little bit of time upstairs. And he's had a few of his experiences with his friends, because kids are exploratory about their genitals, these sensory pleasure centers that have so many freaking thousands of nerve endings. Like, oh my God, of course they're going to play around. They're kids, they're humans.
Yeah.
So I get to now role model not having shame around those experiences and teach him about consent and boundaries from an early age, which what I do is I talk about tickling. Because kids understand intuitively when somebody tickles them too much, or an unwanted hug from Uncle Al. Like, kids understand intuitively, no, I don't want this touch. They get it. So I want to teach them. It's the same damn thing with your genitals. If somebody wants to touch your genitals and you don't want them to touch it, like, you have the right to kick them. You have the right to scream no and throw them off of you. You can punch them in the face. It's okay. Now, when somebody's tickling you, you might not want to punch them in the face. Anyway, I'm just teaching them empowerment and sovereignty over their intuition about the wantedness of touch. I'm also not telling him, yeah, go have sex with your friends at 8 years old. No, I'm not saying that.
Right.
No.
Yeah. But you're just making room for you're making room for what's natural, because I did it as a kid where I, experimented with a neighbor girl, you know what I mean? But there was not a container for that. There was, so all of that was dirty. All of that was bad, versus exploring your sexuality is what's bad is that we don't have a healthy framework for it, that it's natural to do that. And here's your boundaries. Here's your container for it. Here's how you hold that container. Here's how you're the author of your container, and you get to decide what happens in your container.
Let me extend that a little bit. What's bad is not stopping when the other person says no. That's what's bad. Yeah. That is unacceptable. That is where I tell, kick, scream, yell, get out your teeth, scratch with your nails, whatever it takes to get that person to hear your damn no already and back the F off.
Yeah.
Yes. Learn that at an early age, please.
That's gorgeous.
It's natural to want to play with your friends. What is that thing down there between your legs? I've never gotten a close look at that before. Of course, kids want to know. So have the anatomy book on the table and tell them it's fine. These things are natural. There's nothing wrong with it, but I want to make sure that, like, you only do what you want to do. Because young kids don't want to have sex. They hear the word sex, and what it means to them is different than what it means to you and me. To me, sex often means intercourse, right? To an 8-year-old, it doesn't necessarily mean that. It might just mean touching your genitals, like with a hand, like that. They might think that's sex, or they might have some other version of what that word means that's literally not correct.
Yeah.
So I don't want to get too triggered on him saying sex. I just want to tell him I only want you to do what you really want to do, because authentically, they don't have the hormones yet.
Right.
They don't want to go have sex, but they're just curious about their bodies and this thing in between their legs that has thousands of pleasure nerve centers that they have to live with every damn day and nobody talks about.
Right. Oh God. And that's why these conversations are so important. They're so liberating. All right. Well, do you have any closing thoughts or words or wisdom for us as we shift to the end phase here for our show today? Mr. Kristopher.
Oh my God. I mean, I've talked so much. You crack me open and I just have so much to spill forth.
I know. I love it.
Okay. I would just talk to anybody who's tuning into the show. Hi, I'm Kristopher. Nice to meet you. Thank you for showing up and sitting here for this unnormal conversation, because we don't see these conversations happening very much. This just showing up and witnessing is doing work. It's a completely valid way to explore these edges in your own life and become a better person and help shift the energy in the world itself. So thank you for showing up today. Please, if you like anything that you've heard today, you can go get my book. It's awesome. It's on consciouscock.com. And there's lots of free downloads there to help you with lots of different aspects in your life, on your intimate relationships, or things inside yourself that you want to dig a little bit deeper into. So I don't know. That's all that comes up.
That's great. That's great. That's beautiful. And I put your links in the chat. The links are down below as well. Linda, if you'd like to thank the people who've shown up in the live stream, and then I'll close this out. Would that be cool?
Yes. I'll just say one more thing. Like, as you're saying that we're actually clothing, I'll make an ask. if I can just ask something. Okay,
Yeah.
if anybody wants to do this, this would be great. I get censored left and right. I'm censored on, let's see, Facebook. I got banned from Instagram, NBC, CBS, Fox, Good Men Project. I mean, the list is long and distinguished of all the platforms that I'm banned on. Even Amazon, if you go to search my book on Amazon, I won't come up because they banned me from the search results, even though they sell my book. You just have to have the direct link to get in there. Anyway, so what I'm getting at is like it's really hard for me to get my message out there. So if you like what I'm saying, et cetera, I would ask, please share it with other people, or get the book and put it in somebody's hands and do it in a supportive, collaborative, ally manner, not like you need to improve yourself and here's a self-help book. That's not going to go well. But and like leaving me a review on Amazon. Like it's so hard to get reviews. It's really difficult. And so step by step, getting this work out there into the world. I imagine it's going to be like a 10-year process for me to try to get traction with this book. So anyway, thank you for letting me interrupt you, Linda. I apologize about that, but
it's great.
I actually was going to say the same thing. I already put it in the chat as a suggestion. So
oh, okay, great.
I
Thank
had
you.
a feeling that this was going to be a difficult topic for you to get out.
Yeah.
With all the censorship of oh my gosh, he's talking about genitals, in this, yeah.
Non-clinical way.
In this backward society that we have right now. So I just want to give feedback from all of the people in the chat, just really enjoying this. Some of them were even working outside with it, playing out loud, and they were laughing about their labors getting a new education. So I love this and love the conversation. As always, we have the best audience out there. I am just 100% sure of that. Please make sure the links are below for joining the group. I'm assuming your Facebook group is men only.
That's right. Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Because I want guys to not fear the judgment of women. So anyway, I'm facilitating this group for men only.
Yeah. So I love that it's a safe group for men to go to and explore with you. And so if you've got, we've been talking about, if you know people with kids, if you have kids yourself, if you've got anyone in your life that's struggling with relationships or for yourself, this book I think is amazing. So please check it out and like, share, subscribe. If you like this conversation, make sure you hit the bell so that you're notified. Sometimes we start a few minutes late. Sometimes we start right on time, but you'll get notified if you hit that bell. And I really appreciate you taking the time, Kristopher, to spend with us, having some extra time with us, more than you had planned, is really appreciated by everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Yeah, and to hearken on that, share the show. If you've got men in your life, husband, lover, dad, brother, anybody, the guy you grew up in school with that you're like, oh, this could really serve him, then I just think it feels like this book feels like it should be the book that we all have to understand our sexual not orientation, but our sexual, how we function as sexual spiritual beings, because that is a huge missing link in our cultural conversation and understanding. So again, spread the word far and wide, because I think it's the more we heal, the better it is for everybody. And with that, I will let you know that next week we are having our 1-year anniversary show. It's almost to the day, because we started on the 8th last year of August, which is Lionsgate, big to do. That was something that Linda picked up psychically, by the way, when to have the show. And then we investigated the date. It turns out to be Lionsgate. So it's a big energy portal that day. So we are going to have a special party. We're going to have Bill Letson on from last week, or dear Bill, who I love. Sue Walker, amazing Sue Walker with the Ponte. Kevin Australia, another Ponte ambassador. Michelle Ambergy, Michelle Ambergy, who we've had on the show multiple times because we just love her. She's just so engaging on angelic and other levels. And Preston Dennett, who is an OBE experiencer and chronicles other people's experiences with ETs and UFOs. So it's going to be a very fun party. Please join us. And then other than that, I just want to say to everyone, thank you so much for being here. We love you. We appreciate you. Be good to yourself. Explore your sexual energy. Explore your spiritual energy. Let those come to this radiant divine connection, and come to our Facebook group. Meet Kristopher there. He's joined our Facebook group, and hit him up with any questions you might have directly there, because what a great guy. I feel that we're so honored to be able to bring his energy into our show. So thank you, Kristopher. Thank you, Linda. Thank you, everyone. We will see you next week. Have a great day.